You ever pull up to your own neighborhood and see
Get on the
two black
ground now.
SUVs parked
Hands where I
nose
can
to
see 'em.
nose, blocking the only way home flashers going, three guys in dollar store uniforms
Drop it.
standing
Hands
in the
where I can
road
see
like
'em.
it's their personal fiefdom?
I am an FBI agent.
Yeah,
This is a federal
that happened
scene.
to me. Not cops, not even rent-a-cops. These guys were the HOA's homemade enforcers, and they decided today was the day I was getting kicked out of my own street. One of them steps forward, all bravado, hand raised like he's auditioning for a movie Turn Around. He says, "You're not allowed in this community anymore." And I just stared at him, letting it sink in. That's the moment I knew Marilyn Cross, the so-called HOA president, had finally figured out who I was, or at least who I might be getting close to. HOAs don't run roadblocks. Not unless they've got something ugly to hide, and not unless someone's gotten too close to blowing the whole thing up. You know what's wild? They don't even try to hide it anymore when they're scared. They don't pull guns, threaten someone's life unless they're desperate. And believe me, Marilyn Cross was desperate. Before I take you all the way into this showdown, let me just ask, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how far this kind of HOA insanity travels. Because once you get to the end of this story, you'll realize it's not just about property lines or neighborhood drama. It's about power, who wields it, and what happens when someone decides they're above the law. But you probably want to know how I ended up there in the first place. Truth is, I didn't move into that neighborhood like most folks. I was placed there assigned, if you want to get technical, after complaints kept piling up about the HOA. Elderly residents were getting hit with fines they couldn't understand. Payments demanded in cash. Threats of foreclosure, but not a single document ever went through a court. No receipts, no records, just fear and intimidation. On paper, classic HOA stuff. In reality, straight-up organized fraud. See, Marilyn wasn't your run-of-the-mill HOA president. She'd built herself a little kingdom, collected nearly $355 grand from homeowners who didn't know how to fight back. She ran things like a mob boss with better stationery. My job, simple. Move in, blend in, document everything, track the cash. So I kept my head down, paid my dues, mowed my lawn, waved at the neighbors. Let the so-called HOA cops think I was just another guy who didn't ask questions. But I did. I asked a hell of a lot of questions, I just didn't ask them out loud. Instead, I watched, jotted down license plates, made notes about which houses got targeted and when, recorded schedules. And little by little, Marilyn noticed things changing. Folks stopped paying so quickly. People started talking to each other, comparing their violations. An old couple refused a fine, and nothing happened. That's when she showed up at my door, eyes hard, but voice smooth as butter. It would be better for everyone. She said, if you found somewhere else to live. I just smiled, said nothing, stayed put. That's when she panicked. Marilyn didn't send lawyers. She didn't send certified mail. She sent Muscle 3 fake HOA cops and a couple of black SUVs to physically block my return home. And when I say fake, I mean right down to the badges you could print on a home computer. But that's all it takes sometimes, just enough confidence to bluff your way past people who don't know their rights. So there I am, sitting in my car engine idling, watching one of these guys walk up with his pistol out, leveled right at my chest. You're not allowed through this community anymore. HOA decision. Calm as I could, I said, that's against the law. Now move. Didn't shout, didn't flinch. Meanwhile, my own pistol was in my hand, low and out of sight. I wasn't looking for a shootout, but I wasn't about to let 3 imposters run me off my own street. What happened next? Everything went sideways. He didn't back off, didn't even blink. So I stepped out, slow and deliberate, hands visible. The world got weirdly quiet, like nature itself was holding its breath. Birds stilled, wind gone. I said, "You don't have that authority. This isn't an HOA road, it's not your jurisdiction, and you do not point a gun at a civilian." He just smiled, lifted the pistol a notch higher, and said, "Orders came from the top. Marilyn wants you gone." That was the end of the conversation. Next thing I know, he's angling that barrel at my chest, and I snap. My hand shot up, wrenched his wrist away. Gun went off with a bang so loud it rattled my teeth. Heat grazed my face, ears ringing, but his grip broke. One punch straight to the ribs, felt bone give, heard him gasp. He doubled over, dropped the gun. I didn't hesitate, brought mine up, fired once, center mass. He hit the pavement like a sack of bricks. Fake badge, fake authority, all of it spilled out with the sound of his body hitting the asphalt. The other two? They froze. One bolted for the SUV, scrambling terrified. I fired twice, clipped him with one. The second shot sent him into the side of the vehicle before he collapsed, howling. The last guy didn't even slow down, just dove into the driver's seat, burned rubber, and tore off down the road, leaving his team bleeding in the street. I didn't chase. I just stood there breathing hard, gun lowered, neighbors pouring out with their phones out, some screaming, some yelling. They're not real cops. Sirens started up in the distance, climbing fast. I called 911 myself. Shots fired. Illegal roadblock. Armed suspects impersonating law enforcement. Calm as I could be. Didn't have to say much more. The evidence was lying all over the blacktop. Cops showed up faster than I expected. Patrol cars, lights everywhere. Radios squawking. They moved in weapons up, medics rushing to the wounded. Sir, step away from the weapon. I did, slow, clear, no sudden moves. They cuffed me, professional, not rough. Once the scene was secure, a supervisor leaned in, voice low. You want to explain why 3 HOA officers tried to run a roadblock and drew down on you? I just smiled, I will, but not to you. Right then, unmarked SUVs rolled up feds. 2 agents stepped out, suits, eyes sweeping the whole mess. No panic, just authority. My case agent strode over, flash credentials announced for everyone. This is our operation. Local sergeant's jaw nearly hit the ground. My cuffs came off so fast I almost laughed. Badge out, name given, no dramatic reveal, just confirmation for the people who needed to know. My agent handled the rest. Undercover assignment, target HOA, fraud, extortion, impersonation of law enforcement, conspiracy. Roadblock took it up a notch, armed assault now. The guy I shot got stabilized and hauled to surgery, barely alive, but he'd make it. The runner, the one who bailed his plate, was flagged, phone pinging every tower between here and Mexico. Didn't take long to track him down. By nightfall, warrants signed. Marilyn Cross in handcuffs. Her office was a gold mine. Cash ledgers disguised as assessments, burner phones, spreadsheets mapping out targets by age and vulnerability. Over 2 years, she'd siphoned hundreds of thousands from people who trusted her. She tried to bargain. Didn't work. Here's the punchline. Her muscle all went down hard. Guy who pulled the gun survived but never walked again. Sentenced 18 years for impersonation, armed assault, conspiracy. The second 14 years. The runner, even though he confessed, still got 9. Marilyn Cross. 26 years in federal prison. $120,000 fine, permanent ban from ever touching HOA leadership again. The HOA itself was dissolved. All those elderly homeowners got their money back with interest. Weeks later, I drove by that spot. No SUVs, no fake cops, no power trips. Just a quiet road, finally a road leading home. Sometimes I catch myself replaying that moment, the gun, the smile, the threat. They thought power came from pretending to be the law. They forgot what happens when the law is already standing right in front of them. You know, if there's one thing this mess taught me, it's that the scariest bullies are the ones who think they're untouchable because they write their own rules. But they always forget sooner or later the truth gets out, and justice, real justice, doesn't care how fancy your badge is or how loud you shout. So let me ask you, where do you draw the line between protecting a community and abusing power? Does karma always catch up with people like Marilyn Cross? Drop your thoughts below, or if you've ever tangled with an HOA or seen authority cross the line, I want to hear it. Tell me your story. Let's see how far this conversation goes.